welcome to the Actor's Perspective discussion of God of Carnage.
I love this play.
It's a little crazy to see these four people evolve into, or I guess de-evolve is probably a better word.
A lot of us want to get our points proven and across.
Unraveling of all this pretentiousness and then just being literally the things that they're calling their own kids. Pure savage.
Was the most adamantly outspoken against the violence, and then she was the one being violent.
So I used to work at a preschool in the West Village for like very wealthy children. And so this feels like so familiar.
And I think it's just the violence that we as a society now engage in.
What do you think the playwright is trying to say about the way that children and adults fight and argue? And I think Josue had a good lead up into that of like the way that the name calling starts versus the way that the children, you know, he hits them with a stick. Shio, go ahead.
Well, my answer is kind of almost in a piggyback to what Josue said. Not only were the parents being violent with the name calling and the literal physical violence, at the beginning of the play, their thinly veiled, passive aggressive little questions that they ask here while they're serving the kaflua or whatever that thing was and serving coffee, that's emotional violence, you know. That is also, but it's like polite and I'm being passive aggressive and I'm not directly calling your kid a savage, even though you are, but I'm also trying to put the blame on your kid, and I'm under the pretense that I'm being so polite and I'm not, you know, harassing you with insurance issues and, you know, all this. So it's like, even that in itself is an emotional, mental violent attack. And it starts off that way because as adults, you know, we're supposed to be adults and we're supposed to, you know, be polite and handle things well, rather than just communicating and saying, I really don't like the fact that your kid hit my kid and I'm really pissed about it, you know, versus these kids, they had an issue and it's like, bam, I hit you with a stick.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that's a great point. Amanda, and then Andre, and then Amanda A. I will get to all of you.
I just think about this lyric that's in the musical version of Mean Girls in the song I'd Rather Be Me. And the character Janice is singing, we're supposed to all be ladies, be nurturing and care. Is that really fair? Boys get to fight, we have to share. Like boys, like young boys get to beat up each other. And women are told, like, nope, just smile and be nice, and like smack them with your underhanded compliment. That's how you get them. It's like more conniving and deceitful in that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's so much of that going on here. Whereas at any point, the two men, if they were allowed, right, because the women told them to try to like be nice for the evening. Like if the two women weren't there, the men probably would have been at fists like within the first 10 minutes. But they're trying to be civil because that's how they've been instructed to play for the day, for lack of a better word. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic too, if not everybody had been there. If it were just the women, how that meeting would have gone, or if it were just the men, how that meeting would have gone too.
Definitely. Andre?
I feel like we just learned how to be really good at being passive aggressive, and that's what happened here. And I don't know if the guys would have just fought. I felt like the guys wouldn't care. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if they really would have been like, let's sit down and figure this out. And to think of a classism thing, I was thinking like, what would my mom have done? Not that she's in middle class, she was an officer. I felt like my mom would have been like, I ain't got time for this. Like, we're not gonna sit and talk about this. Like, they had a fight on the playground. She would just probably tell me like, you know, if I came home with a busted lip, like, how's the other kid look? You know, like, what happened there? Because I got to take you to the dentist now. She would have been mad at me. You know what I mean? So those are some of the differences I was thinking about.
No, definitely. I think that's fair. I think you're 100% right with like with kids, they have a short attention span with that stuff. Like if you hit your friend accidentally or whatnot the other day, by the next morning or 2 days
All
later,
the
friends again. Whereas with these, like the question that keeps coming back is like, do they know what they did wrong? They're 11 years old. That's not necessarily a level of understanding with that. But with that said, Amanda, I saw your hand earlier, and then Grace as well.
I was just going to say that kind of in line with what everyone else has been saying, that it's so interesting hearing parents talk about their children, because especially when they've done something wrong, because especially at that age, children have learned most of their behaviors and their reactions from their parents. And I think a lot of times parents can be super unaware, and they get so crazy about it because they're like defending themselves, like because this kid is, the way they see it is a reflection on who they are and on their shortcomings. And you know, and so you see these adults defending themselves and becoming very childish in the process, which is, you know, quite ironic and funny.
Good point.
Definitely. I like that a lot. I think you're 100% right. Like when you see who these kids' parents are, it's kind of easy to be like, well, yeah, I can see how, you know, Benjamin might be a little bit hot-headed when his dad is and his mom come off pretty quickly towards each other.
Well, the dad has no remorse about the drug case that he's representing, like killing people or hurting people. No remorse. So how would this kid have any remorse?
Just slight minor side effects on a handful of people. You never know. All right, Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, I had this thought when I was reading it, and then I just saw something online that mentioned this too. But I was thinking about similarities to the play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and like a similar kind of like politeness to couples at the beginning, you know, wanting to be like coming off as like normal seeming, and then like this disintegration of that like over the course of the play and with alcohol. And I think that both plays kind of do show like and makes me think about like underneath all of the pleasantries like that we have to have in order to be like functional members of societies, like do we all have these kind of like primal instincts to throw stuff and hit people, and even like the vomiting in this play, like it's so gross, and I don't know how you would actually pull that off on stage, but it's also so real, like people vomit and like when they're uncomfortable too, that can happen.
Right.
And so like just like the underlying tension just literally like explodes. So yeah, it makes for a very interesting drama for sure.
Definitely. And of course, jumping off of that, I have my last of the discussion questions for you guys, which Grace touched on with the alcohol of what stage directions and outside influences does the playwright use to escalate the tension throughout the play? Now, yes, Shio, go ahead.
Stupid cell phone.
There you go. That's one of the biggest ones.
It's a freaking cell phone. It's like every time the conversation's like finally getting somewhere, or someone's making a point, or someone's getting, the phone rings, and he's like right in the middle of the conversation. No, it's like, dude, like you're literally stopping the discussion, delaying this. Like we could have been done. We could have been done by like page 5. And he just keeps taking these phone calls. Even I was getting frustrated, and I'm like just reading the play. I was just like, stop. But then I guess like it's such a real portrayal, I guess, of a lawyer, you know, like they're constantly like on call, and he deals with international crime and all this pharmaceutical stuff. So I can only imagine what home life must be. But that phone was making me annoyed. So
I just like that it starts off like maybe you feel like he is on the good side of things when he's like, I have to go to The Hague and deal with the international like courts. And then as the play goes on, you're like, oh no, you're the bad guy. You're the this. Like you're not trying to stop
He has a job.
this drug hitting the market. You're trying to keep this drug on the market.
Okay, I'm getting paid.
Yeah. Audrey, go ahead.
I think something that is very interesting in terms of inciting or pushing forward all the chaos is how they use the environment in the apartment. So like the art books on the table, there's like adjustments, there's lots of conversation about the art books. We learn a lot about stuff that we pull back from later. The tulips and the hairdryer, which is a very comical little piece that just keeps making an appearance. It's like they all like are their own characters, which I enjoy.
I think that's a great point, especially it's such a good use of the elements that you just have around your house from the playwright to say like, what can we do that shows a semblance of like, not only are we well cultured and well adjusted, but we care about what's happening in the world. So we're going to give you a photo album of stuff that you've taken across Africa.
Yeah.
You're writing an article on Darfur.
Yeah.
But Tyler, go ahead.
The basin that she vomits into literally is
Yeah. You have a vomit basin.
Speaking of like the things in the environment, let me talk about my favorite character, the Clafouti. The Clafouti is the most important character because what is in this Clafouti? It is a cake. Okay, what is a Clafouti? It is like a cake and that has fruit in it. That's literally what a Clafouti is. It's actually very good. I've made one. It's delicious. But what's in it? Apples. Shut up.
I love that if this were in person, you would have brought a clafouti for all of us.
Oh my God,
at
it's
this
true.
reading. That would have happened.
Well, I baked them before. Okay, so I have done scenes from this play, so I'm very, very aware of it. But I also was the one who baked the clafouti, so I'm very aware of this clafouti. So I love this thing. The clafouti is with apples and pears. Getting to my point, two things that inherently you don't think of as pairings, two things that quote unquote don't go together when you bake them together. They don't have the chemistry, which is what baking is. Literally, it is the description of these two couples. Two things that do not go together, but they are being forced together. And what happens when Annette is eating it and it goes down her throat? She's sick of it. She's sick of it. This Clafouti made her sick. Being with these people make her sick. This is why the Clafouti is the most important character, because it literally describes the situation that we are in. Love the Clafouti. All right.
That was beautiful, Tyler.
No, we appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I'm glad. Thank you for explaining the chemistry of baking to us, because honestly, I did not know that. And I appreciate it so much.
You are very welcome.
Now I want
It's not. It makes me wonder, is it not the gingerbread crumbs? What if this whole time Annette's just allergic to gingerbread and we just didn't know?
Also, we have gingerbread in like apples and pears. That does not sound good as a baker.
I think it sounds delicious. It sounds like fall to me. Like it sounds like something you like threw some cinnamon on it or something. Yeah, winter spices.
I'd eat that.
But ginger and apples, like, sorry, that's like a specific thing. Ginger and apples, really?
Andre, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking as Alan, like I would be Alan, just eating and like drinking, like, yeah, I'll take rum. Yeah, I'll take coffee. Forget this conversation. Let's just eat. And he's squatting down. That would be me.
I say, obviously, I think the other big component compared with the Clafouti and the cell phone is the alcohol. Once that starts flowing, obviously inhibitions are lost and loosened up, and all the
truth comes out.
Yeah, all of a sudden you get to see who Michael really is, which makes a lot more sense for his character than who he is kind of at the beginning in my mind. And you start to see him and Alan team up a little bit more. Obviously, Veronica and Annette with their alcohol starts getting a little bit looser. And one of the things I do want to touch on that we kind of keep circling is we expect the violence from Alan and Michael, when really the violence comes from the wives at the end. It's Veronica who throws Annette's purse. It's Annette who crushes the tulips. It's
The phone.
who jump on their husband with the phone and with the cigars. Like the violence comes from the two characters who we don't necessarily expect it from, which is always like a nice little turnaround.
Because much like the Clafouti, we are sick of it.
Yes. I was just saying,
Right.
like, it's kind of like the point that Amanda made earlier, how, women are raised to, be polite and gentle creatures or nurturing. And then you throw in some alcohol and our inhibitions are down and suddenly we're ready to fight because we're sick of it, And it's really funny that it's another point, like Amanda A said, was, Veronica's the one who's like so adamant about how like this violence is so bad and your son needs to really understand what he did. And then here she goes, one glass of the freaking rum and she's attacking her husband. Like it's really interesting how once the alcohol is invited in, the inhibitions go down and like the truth is revealed, of who they really are. It really, it's very funny to see how it's like polar opposites of what they were at the beginning.
Tyler, you're on mute and I can still hear you.
I literally was just like, yeah.
Guys, is there any final thoughts or anything that you guys have about the play other than obviously we clearly enjoyed it? We know that we love these kind of conflicts. Amanda, go ahead.
Just want to share, because of the woof woof thing, just to bring it back one more time to these ridiculous nicknames. When I worked at TD Bank as a bank teller, I often was in the drive-through area because this was on Long Island, and we had dog treats to give out to dogs that were like in the cars or if they would come into the bank. And if I had $1 for every time a man made a joke about, oh, can I have a treat for my wife? I do not have student debt anymore. So that's why my brain went to like woof woof. He's like joking about his wife being a dog, like that. You know what I mean? Like in my head, like that. It happened so many times, and it was so awkward every time. And you'd have to be like, that's so stupid. Yeah. So many dumb men.
I'm really glad to see all the male reaction. I appreciate that you guys all also agree that was freaking stupid.
Yeah.
Kudos to you guys. That's why you're in this group.
Yeah, true.
I at first thought the woof woof thing was like he was being funny, and then they just kind of ran with it. Like, oh no, this is a pet name. Yeah, it's a.
I definitely thought it was an insult. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I thought he insulted her, and then they were just like, "No, we're a team." Yeah, woof woof. It's a pet name. I swears it. That would not happen. That would not fly over here. I could not be like, "Hey, baby, woof woof." I would be like.
Right.
Like I would feel so uncomfortable even saying. I would have just left. Like, you know what? I'm gonna handle this pharmaceutical thing before it gets crazy in here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for participating.
Calling in between.
I know.
As well.
So funny.
Both of the men keep getting phone calls. It's not just the pharmaceutical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with the mom.
Yeah, it's true.
That's my mom.
That's true.
That's true. Well, it's also one of those things where you see the relationships between everybody, obviously, and then outside the space as well. Like, as soon as Michael's mom calls, he's back on the phone, and he's very much like the good son.
Mm-hmm.
When he's not on the phone with her, he's like, she wants to be cremated and brought down to Florida, and I just can't handle that. And she's going to go get herself glow-in-the-dark crutches so she can get hit by a truck while she's running a marathon, maybe? But so clearly, like,
yeah,
his relationship.
But didn't at the end he was like, just do as you're told?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even that dynamic changes. Like, look at the way, you talk. When your parents get older, I do find, like, adult children kind of treat their, parents like kids again and say things that.
And then you.
Yeah, I mean, I would never. Again, my mom was a cop and she has a gun, so I would never. Be like,
No, you're definitely right.
As you're told.
you start to see Michael's relationship with his mom evolve throughout the phone call, and as he gets more alcohol in his system,
you're right. It starts to
listen to the doctor, but don't listen to the doctor about this thing, but just do as you're told and, you know, be careful. Tyler's thinking. Yes.
Tyler, what's the word?
Oh, me? Oh, sorry, I didn't hear. My bad. I guess I just always like to like end off in thinking, why is this play relevant? Why is this a play that people need to see? And we've obviously already talked about it. I just like reiterating it is because we go through our lives kind of dulling our impulses. I mean, Alan kind of says it best. He talks about how we are always trying to like not always trying to be on our impulse, because if we're always on our impulse, and no one wants to be having sex while singing Ave Maria. Sometimes you have to let loose, and sometimes you have to really follow your impulses and be honest with yourselves, and not just honest with yourselves, honest to everybody else. And I think that's something that you can read this play and get, and hopefully take an ounce of that, not all of this play, to apply that to yourselves, because we as humans are just conditioned to really not be so wild, so full of carnage, like this play clearly says. So I think that's something for everybody to like take a moment back and see about this play. Is why can't I just why can't they just come in and say, hey, your son hit my kid and I'm mad? Oh yeah, I'm mad too. Like that's not fair. We're done. Like, and just let it out. You'll feel better, because if you hold it back, then you get problems like this.
Mm-hmm.
So just that, nothing else.
No, most definitely. I think that's a great note to end on. So once again, thank you all for being a part of the first discussion of 2021 with CastableNYC. It's great to see you all again. And if you want to be a part of this, speaking to the audience that we have, find us on Instagram at CastableNYC, join our mailing list, and you can sign up and be a part of it as well. Thanks again, guys, and I will see you all soon.
Yeah.